Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts. On Android, we recommend Spotify. Also, check out the 5 Reasons YouTube channel for all your South Florida sports content. We always mention Off the Floor. That's the place for the most heat anywhere. That's where you also get access to all of our promotions. We got great deals for you with all of our partners. And you can check out 10 different channels. Get off of Twitter. Everything decent from Twitter we put here anyway, and you avoid all the political talk, everything else. Just go to Off the Floor. Again, link is right here in our description. Also, check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Put down your $5. You get $50 to play right away. Prize Picks is the official fantasy partner of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Legal in the state of Florida. You can play NHL, NBA, NFL, MMA, and more. It's all on there. Daily fantasy simplified. And yes, you get better plays than you will find in other places. The simplest to play, it's Prize Picks. Use the code F-I-V-E. And now, today's episode.
Uh-oh. Yeah. It's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation. We the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need Brady to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket. Open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pick. Still 5 on the floor. Still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court. Still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball. Or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleepy paths or allowed to morning. The nut is sleeping us. Never catch us snoring. Live from Miami. Report in the heat with 5 Reasons Sports from the court to the streets. Yeah. Wake County, Heat Nation, we say it proudly.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. The Miami Heat are 6-4 entering tonight's game. If you're listening to this before the game, 2 games coming up against the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs last time in Miami, not the playoffs, but before that, the playoffs are a different story, struggled a little bit with that South Beach flu stuff. So we'll see what happens here over the course of 3 days. They did. I lived in Cleveland for a while. I understand it. I understand why that particular strain affects them. It's nothing to do up there. Anyway, East 4th Street. What is that? Okay, it's one street. Anyway, sorry. I don't mean to offend anybody. If Max Strus is listening to us right now, then I apologize. Anyway, Max is not playing tonight. So the Heat have 2 against Cleveland, and they're 6-4. Tyler Herro not back yet. Bam Adebayo not back yet. But everybody else is available to play at this point, other than, of course, Terry Rozier. And so we're going to dive into this topic that Brady Hawk, follow him at Brady Hawk 305, got into on the Sports Illustrated page that we run on SI, where he talked about who's going to lose time when Tyler Herro comes back. So let me throw this at you, Alex, without us getting into the starters, because that's a separate conversation. Okay, I want to focus on who's going to be playing less. So here are the 8 players that I believe are going to play every night, provided that they're healthy. It's Bam Adebayo, Andrew Wiggins, Norm Powell, Tyler Herro, Davion Mitchell, Khalil Ware, Nikola Jovic, and Jaime Jaquez Jr. Would you agree with those 8?
Yeah.
Okay. So there are 5 other players on the active or standard contracts. So let's take the 2 ways out of this. Those 5 players, again, not including Rozier or the empty slot, okay, each of which will be as impactful for the Heat this season on the court. The other spots are Simone Fontecchio, Drew Smith, Pelle Larsson. Thanks, Drew, for having an easy name to pronounce. Kasparis Yakachonis, and Keshad Johnson. We're going to assume Keshad Johnson. I'm sorry. We're going to assume that Keshad Johnson is not going to play, right? Barring emergency.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption.
Okay. Is it also fair to say that Kasparis will not be getting regular playing time in with the big club, at least at this point?
Yep. As much as I hate to say it, I felt that way beforehand and feel even stronger in that sense now just because the guys ahead of him are just playing too well.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about those three guys.
Mm-hmm.
Erik Spoelstra has traditionally liked to play 9. Do you think with as well as Smith, Larson, and Fontecchio have played consistently, not like one night, not like every other night, the three of them have played well pretty much every time they've played. Like, I mean, Larson had one game that wasn't quite as good. Fontecchio had one game that wasn't quite as good. I don't know that Drew's had a bad game, honestly, in terms of what you're asking him to do and what he provides. Do you see any scenario where Erik Spoelstra just limits it to 9? If everybody I'm mentioning is healthy.
Yeah, I can definitely see that scenario considering how often he's opted to go with 9 in the past. And look, I feel like a broken record sometimes because I feel like every single season I come on here and say they should run a 10-man rotation. They have the guys to do it. And I don't know. It feels like this season there's an even stronger case for that because everybody's playing well. It's not like that. It's funny because you mentioned like the 8 guys that are set in stone, most likely to be in that rotation every night. And you can make the case that these 3 guys we're talking about here on the fringe have played their role more consistently than, say, Jovic and Ware. And look, I'm not advocating for those guys to be out of rotation. No way. I would definitely not advocate for that. But just to illustrate how well, these guys have been playing in their roles. Like it's been a pleasant surprise just to see how consistent they've been because like the bench has been a huge part of this. It's not like the starters are carrying them and whatever. They want to rely on the starters more. Like it's absolutely not the case. Like the other night, I think it would have been fine if he closed with Drew instead of Davion. Like I thought Drew was playing that well. Drew's been really good all season. Pella, like the time, whether he was on the bench or whether he was in the starting lineup, he showed you what he does. To me, the shot looks a little bit cleaner this season as well. And Fontecchio like has been a sniper. It's really hard to not say 10-man rotation, especially when you're playing a faster pace, right? And honestly, like a part of me, like I know it's definitely not going to happen. I would say like run an 11-man rotation.
He's not doing that.
Where the 10 and 11 are kind of like, the 10 and 11 aren't getting the same amount of minutes as maybe the guys ahead. But, like they're getting these small spurts. But it's definitely not going to happen, as you say.
But is there something to be said, and I want to get into who would be in and out, but is there something to be said, though, for rhythm also? One of the things that concerns me about playing 11 is that you're cutting minutes
That's fair.
from guys who do need to get into rhythm. Like Tyler is a guy who plays off of rhythm. I don't think they're going to – once he's ramped up, Nico is a guy who plays off of rhythm. I'm concerned about some guys being cut. Now, Tyler's not going to be cut to 17, 18 minutes, but I'm concerned about like Nico getting cut to 17, 18 minutes. Like with Ware, I can see it because there will be one time in the game where he just decides he doesn't want to play him because he's not giving the effort. And when Bam is back, he'll have a little bit more luxury to do that. Not a lot. Okay, we've talked about the issues with rotation in the front court. But I do think rhythm matters. I think 10 is the right number, and I kind of feel like it's 9.5. Maybe a 10th guy gets in the first half, but doesn't necessarily play in the second half. I can also see, and we're not really getting into the starters on this, but I can see a quicker hook for a starter if, say, Jovic was starting. Although I don't think Jovic is going to be starting. I think, and I don't want to diverge on this because there's whole other episodes we'll do on this, but I think it's going to be Wiggins at the 4. That's where this has been headed, so to speak. And Ware and Jovic have natural chemistry off the bench, so I kind of feel like that may be the direction that he goes in. Starts small, probably closes with that group too on a lot of occasions. Tyler Powell, Davion, Wiggins, and Bam. I think that's the most likely consistent closing lineup, but I could see somebody else getting in there, like a Larson sometimes, like some of the other guys you mentioned. But before we go to break on this, okay, so let's say it's 10, okay? Somebody's left out. So I just want you to think about this as we go into the break, and I'll give you what some others have said. Mm-hmm. Greg thinks it's going to be Drew, or it should be Drew, that's left out. Brady in his article seemed to lean a little bit more towards Fontecchio, who I lean to. And when I put this on Twitter, most people do agree that it would be one of those two because – when I said if anybody's going to be the 9th guy, which of these 3, and they had Larson's like winning at like 55%. I don't know that we would have said that 2 weeks ago because it looked like Pella was trending out of the rotation. But honestly, he just played so damn well. So I want you to think about that. We'll talk about it more on the other side. I do want to talk about a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, our friends over at Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's realestateshopfl.com. Javier and Amanda, they had open houses going on this week, and I think they were in Pines, Plantation. They're all over the place. This is a tricky real estate market. Everything's tricky these days. Make sure you work with experienced people who have your family in mind. They're family folks themselves. They know Broward County as well as anybody, and huge Miami Heat fans. Javier's been on here on the podcast. So check them out. It's realestateshopfl.com or go to the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. Okay, so can you make a case for Pelle Larsson being the odd man out?
Yeah, I think you can make the case because honestly, it's a tough question. You know,
Yes.
the question about whether, like, if you are going to run a 10-man rotation when Tyler's back and Bam is back, you know, who do you cut out? I think it really is a tough question, but you can make the case for Pelle because I think Pelle is like that guy where, you know, if he is the guy whose minutes get cut drastically when everybody's healthy, like we were kind of talking about, maybe I don't know, like, is he a guy whose impact could maybe be felt less? I think there's a case for that. He wouldn't be my pick personally, but I do think you give thought to it because that's, like you said earlier, like that's kind of where that's where things stood before the injuries kind of started to pile up, first to Norm, and of course already with the Tyler injury. So I think like the case is there, but really I also think about the other two a little bit more. I think Drew would be a candidate because you're bringing back a guard, right? And I think like part of me is like, how many guards do you want in your rotation? But then the other part of me is like, I want Drew in there somewhere, which is
Right.
it's really crazy because like I feel like I respected Drew coming into the season and even you know, like going into the season before. But man, he's surpassed my expectations even more. Like he went from just being solid to like, okay, no, this is a, you know, this is a he's been a positive pretty much every
I don't
night.
know. I really don't know how either. I don't know how a guy comes off a torn ACL and Achilles tear and is looking like he looks. Like he does not look like he lost. I know lateral quickness was not his biggest thing. It's more
Well, man, it's
positioning.
a big part of what he does on defense.
And he hasn't lost it. He hasn't lost it. It's remarkable. I mean, if you've ever talked to Drew, you kind of know where this comes from. But it's just, not enough has been made of what he's done so far. I mean, and here's the thing: he was making positive impact in his minutes last season before he got hurt. Every lineup was better with him, and so I'm with you in the idea that it's going to be difficult for Spo to pull him out, especially when he has a point of attack defender on the court at all times now.
And that was going to be my next point. I love the two-headed like monster that they have going on with their point of attack defense with Davion and Drew. And it goes back to kind of what I was thinking before about keeping Davion in that starting lineup when Tyler's back. Like I know we're not going to get into that, but that would fit in to that.
But it does matter. It does matter, Alex, in this context, because if the starting lineup does matter because Drew is more likely to stay in the rotation if Davion is starting, right?
Of course. Yeah,
makes more sense, right?
And that's why I like that situation better. So I think I'd keep Drew in my rotation. I think I'd keep Pelle, and I think my unfortunate cut would be Simone.
Me too.
As much as I hate to say it, like, you know, he's been good. He's been very good, and you know, obviously he wasn't going to shoot 60% from three all season. But in the minutes that he's played, like he's shooting the ball well, and the defense is not standing out in such a negative way. And that's really all you wanted. Like you didn't come here expecting him to be this awesome defender for you, but he's a guy who, like, you know, at whatever he, oh my God, I even hesitate to say it now because I know where you're going to go with this. At his 6'7" height, you know, it's just he brings
contractually obligated to do that by somebody in my household. So there you go.
Yeah, and that's why I hesitated. But you know, the frame that he brings as somebody who's just like an okay defender, you know, like it's a positive. Like he adds a little bit of wing size to a team that is already not that big. So I almost like I would hesitate to bring out somebody who's been such a good shooter for them, and maybe have to rely a little bit more on guys who haven't always been great shooters like Pelle and Drew. But I still think that's where I would go with it, especially because you're bringing back such a high level shooter in Tyler. And of course, like the more shooting, the merrier. But it's a really tough question, and I think my answer would be Fontecchio as well.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it too. And it reminds me a little bit of the way that Spo used to use James Jones.
Their defense is just so important, and it's been so good.
Well, but that's the thing, though. Fontecchio strikes me. Look, JJ was unique in that you could shelve him for 3 weeks, then he'd come off the bench and he'd start for Dwayne, and that happened all the time. And then he'd have 3 threes, and then he'd go back to the bench for 3 months and be preparing to be, an NBA executive, basically. Fontecchio doesn't have that kind of cachet with the organization, or sort of that trust level with the organization that JJ had at that point. Obviously, JJ had been with them prior to the big three, even, starting, came back, all that. I think Fontecchio is the answer because they're getting a shooter back. I think it's really that simple. And I just don't think you can take Larson's intangibles out of the rotation. I don't. Like, there are minutes
and scoring more too.
Or Drew's. That's the thing. But I see, but the thing with Larson is that, like, there's like always a 4 or 5 minute stint where he completely changes the energy. And
I felt that way about Drew too.
He does. No, they both do. But I just, with Larson, and I saw this, and obviously we talked about this a lot coming out of training camp, or into training camp, but also with what we talked about with Summer League, where he was on the floor. They gave him all these different roles. He adapts to all of it. Mm-hmm. He's not scared of anybody. And what's impressed me, and Brady and I were talking about this in the game the other night, like the way he's looked with Jaquez, I was not expecting that. I thought they would clash a little bit, and they've played really well together, cutting off the ball, all of that stuff. I've been really impressed with that. I know people say I'm like a Pella, like, I am. I think that guy is a high level role player on a good team. I really do. I don't think he's a star, but that dude's going to win championships somewhere. He's going to play, whether it's in Miami or somewhere else. If he's in the right system, he's going to be in the top 8 somewhere, and he's going to be giving you consistent minutes and giving you that energy. I don't think they can take him out of the rotation, and I feel the same way about Drew. And I also think with Drew, even though he's the kind of personality that would accept it, obviously that's who he is, I don't think Spo wants to do that to him. No. Honestly, like, right? Like with what he's come back from, making the 11th guy.
And how well he played. It wouldn't feel right. And then, like, the other thing with Fontecchio, like as you were talking about it there, like the Jaime factor, that almost gave me a little bit of second thoughts, because it's like taking out another shooter from those lineups maybe could have an adverse effect. Now, of course, like there's different lineups that Jaime's going to be playing with. You figure out the lineups. I think Drew and Pella have been good enough shooters where they're not just like these liabilities that are being left wide open and have no confidence shooting their shot, which is kind of what Jaime was last season. And he's not shooting threes anymore, so it's not even a problem really. Like, he's all about getting to the basket and playmaking. So thinking about that part, right, like that would make me, second guess myself a little bit with that decision. But still, I think I would still lean just keeping those guys, Drew and Pella specifically, in there.
It's crazy where we are, that a guy that the Heat picked up in a trade for Duncan, that there was consideration of waiving and stretching, and we're all like, oh, they can't possibly take him out of the rotation. But he's the only guy. And I really do think he's the only guy. I think as you look at where this is headed, they've got 2 dead roster spots. We haven't really seen the two ways get a chance to contribute, at this point. Golden with the team, but hasn't played. Jameer Young, Myron Gardner's actually played pretty well in the G League. Had some moments the other day. So I think there may be opportunities for some of these guys, but again, they're so guard heavy that I don't know if Gardner and Jameer Young are going to get opportunities anytime soon. But they have 2 dead roster spots, and they're still deep as hell. They really are. Like, they're very, like, they've got a lot of guys they can go to. But I'm on the Drew and Larson have to keep playing. He's got to play 10. Now, I can see some games, again, where the second half, the guy he benches, if he goes 9, may not be the guy you think. It might be Khalil. Some nights, it might be Jovic some nights. Right? And then these guys play. Because you hit on it. Ware and Jovic, no question, are higher upside players than these guys. Like, there's no, then even then Larson, then Fontecchio, and then Drew. But you know what you're getting from these 3 guys, particularly from Drew and Larson, every single night. We don't know what there's this much more variability, stint to stint, game to game, confidence in Nico's case, focus in Ware's case. And I do think there are going to be some second halves where he just plays. If he's got Larson and Drew Smith, diving on the floor, getting steals, creating, you may not see Nico or Ware again. I think that may be where this heads, right?
Those are like the exact type of players that you're describing, for sure. And we know that Spo loves those guys, and they frankly have done it. Like, it's not just Spo saying stuff, right? Like, he is saying what is, being reflected on the court. Those guys are out there making plays, and their bench has been I can't stress enough how big of a part of what's gone well so far this season. Like their bench, it's been a huge part of it. I think you want to make sure like you make the right decision here, because I feel like normally a 10th man in the rotation versus who gets left out, it's maybe not so impactful. But versus with a team that is relying on their bench in a way so much, like to come in and make a difference, not just buy time until the starters come back. It's a more impactful decision than I feel like a casual fan might think. Like Drew has been awesome. Pella has been really good, and so has Fontecchio, to be fair. I just think the shooting, it's like at some point it was going to come down. To be fair, he's played his role, but you're basically just like you're weighing a bunch of different skill sets and factors with lineups. And I think that's where ultimately, like, considering everything, it would be him, but I wouldn't feel great about it. That's why, like, part of me is like, hey, just, try, can you fit in 11 somewhere? But I don't know if Fontecchio would play well in that role, like speaking to the rhythm stuff. Like, as somebody who has to be a shooter.
I think for him, but I think the other thing is this. Once Tyler is ramped up in terms of his minutes, you need to get him and Powell on the court as much as possible together. See how that looks. And so you have all these different pockets of minutes that you've got to find places for.
Here's a take before we end the show.
Yes.
I think they're going to start together, and then from there, like, probably close together. But I think in between, you'll see the two-headed point guard monster that I was talking about before. Like,
I think you will, but I think you will, but there's a bigger concern here. There is about winning night to night, but there's also figuring out how you're going to pay the two of them. I think they need to get a good look at that. So I'm with you. The starting, the finishing, they'll be on the court, but they'll be a little bit more than that too, just because they need to figure out what kind of chunk of salary they can give to two guys. And if that backcourt really meshes, then we're having a different conversation here about what they decide to do with their resources. If it doesn't mesh and it's a fight to kind of figure it out, which, by the way, Dragic and Wade were a fight to figure it out for a couple of years too. Sometimes backcourts don't come together right away. I mean, Tyler with pretty much everybody has been. Tyler with Kyle was not a great fit. There's been these problems over the years.
The play style makes me more optimistic about it.
Me too, but we got to see it. We haven't seen it yet. All right, thanks to our sponsors, Real Estate Shop, FL.com. Also, Prize Picks. Use the code FIVE. Have a good one, everybody.